Topic 9. Security Management Practices. Part 2. Performance Measurement in Information Security Management. While CISOs sometimes claim that the costs and benefits and performance of information security are almost impossible to measure, in fact they are measurable. Doing so requires the design and ongoing use of an information security performance management program based on effective performance metrics. Information security performance management is the process of designing, implementing, and managing the use of the collected data elements, called measures or metrics, to determine the effectiveness of the overall security program. Performance measurements, or measures, are data points or computed trends that may indicate the effectiveness of security countermeasures or controls, technical and managerial, as implemented in the organization. Organizations use three types of measurements. First, those that determine the effectiveness of the execution of information security policy. Second, those that determine the effectiveness and/or efficiency of the delivery of information security services. And third, those that assess the impact of an incident or other security event on the organization or its mission. According to NIST Special Publication 800-55R1, the Performance Measurement Guide for Information Security, the following factors must be considered during development and implementation of an information security performance management program. First, measurements must yield quantifiable information. Second, data that supports the measurements needs to be readily obtainable. Third, only repeatable information security processes should be considered for measurement. And fourth, measurements must be useful for tracking performance and directing resources. Also, according to SP 800-55R1, four factors are critical to the success of an information security performance program. First is strong upper-level management support. Second is practical information security policies and procedures. Third is quantifiable performance measurements. And fourth is results-oriented measurements analysis. When an organization applies statistical and quantitative approaches of mathematical analysis to the process of measuring the activities and outcomes of the information security program, it is using information security metrics. In some organizations, the terms metrics and measures are interchangeable. In others, the term metrics is used for more granular, detailed measurements, while the term measurements is used for aggregate, higher-level results. This is an example of security analytics. Before beginning the process of designing, collecting, and using measures, the CISO should be prepared to answer the following questions. Why should these measurements be collected? What specific measurements will be collected? How will these measurements be collected, and when will these measurements be collected? Who will collect these measurements, and where, in other words, at what point in the functions process, will these measurements be collected? Even with strong management support, an information security measures program as part of a security performance management program must be able to demonstrate value to the organization. One of the most popular among the many references that support the development of a process improvement and performance measures is the Capability Maturity Model Integrated from the CMMI Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. Another popular approach is the NIST SP 800-55 Revision 1 Performance Measurement for Information Security. This process is divided into two major activities. First is identification and definition of the current information security program. Second is development and selection of specific measures to gauge the implementation, effectiveness, efficiency, and impact of the security controls. One of the critical tasks in the measurement process is to assess and quantify what will be measured. While information security planning and organizing activities may only require time estimates, you must obtain more detailed measurements when assessing the effort spent to complete production tasks and the time spent completing project tasks. Measurements collected from production statistics depend greatly on the number of systems and the number of users of those systems. Collecting measurements about project activities may be even more challenging, as the organization needs some mechanism to link the outcome of each project in terms of loss control or risk reduction to the resources consumed. Some thought must go into the processes used for data collection and record keeping. Once the question of what to measure is answered, the how, when, where, and who questions of metric collection must be addressed. Designing the collection process requires thoughtful consideration of the intent of the metric along with a thorough knowledge of how production services are delivered. One of the priorities in building an information security measurement program is determining whether these measures will be macro focus or micro focus or some combination thereof. Macro focus measurements examine the performance of the overall security program. Micro focus measurements examine the performance of an individual controller or group of controls within the information security program. What is important is that the measurements are specifically tied to individual information security goals and objectives. Because organizations seem to manage what they measure, it is important to ensure that individual metrics are prioritized in the same manner as the processes they measure. This can be achieved with a simple low, medium, or high priority ranking system, or a weighted scale approach, which would involve assigning values to each measure based on its importance in the overall information security program, and on the overall risk mitigation goals and the criticality of the systems. While there are literally hundreds of measurements that could be used, only those associated with appropriate level priority activities should be incorporated. Performance targets make it possible to define success in the security program. Many information security performance measurement targets are represented by a 100% target goal. Other types of performance measures, such as those used to determine relative effectiveness or efficiency or impact of information security on the organization's goals, tend to be more subjective and require solid native and subjective reasoning. One of the fundamental challenges in information security performance measurement is defining effective security. In other words, when is information security effective? Examples of possible security performance measures include the following: the percentage of the organization's information systems budget devoted to information security, the percentage of high vulnerabilities mitigated within organizationally defined time periods after discovery, the percentage of space of remote access points used to gain unauthorized access, the percentage of information systems personnel who have received security training, the average frequency of audit records review and analysis for an appropriate activity, the percentage of new systems that have completed certification and accreditation prior to their implementation, the percentage approved and implemented configuration changes identified in the latest automated baseline configuration, the percentage of information systems that have conducted annual contingency plan testing, the percentage of users with access to shared accounts, the percentage of incidents reported within required time frame per applicable incident category, and the percentage of system components that undergo maintenance in accordance with formal maintenance schedules. Other possible security performance measures include percentage of media that passes sanitization procedures testing, the percentage of physical security incidents allowing unauthorized entry into facilities containing information assets, the percentage of employees who are authorized access to information systems only after they sign an acknowledgement that they have read and understood the appropriate policies, the percentage of individuals screened before being granted access to organizational information and information systems, the percentage of vulnerabilities remediated within organization-specified timeframes, the percentage of system and service acquisition contracts that include security requirements and/or specifications, the percentage of mobile computers and devices that perform all cryptographic functions using organizationally specified cryptographic modules operating in approved modes of operation, and the percentage of operating system vulnerabilities for which patches have been applied or that have been otherwise mitigated. Once developed, information security performance measurements must be implemented and integrated into ongoing information security management operations. For the most part, it is insufficient to simply collect these measures once. Performance measurement is an ongoing, continuous improvement operation. An IST information security performance measurement implementation has 6 phases. In phase 1, you prepare for data collection, identify, define, develop, and select the information security measures. Phase 2, collect data and analyze results. Collect, aggregate, and consolidate metric data collection and compare measurements with targets. Phase 3, identify corrective actions. Develop a plan to serve as the roadmap for closing the gap identified in Phase 2. In Phase 4, develop the business case. In Phase 5, obtain resources, address the budgeting cycle for acquiring resources, need to implement remediation actions identified in Phase 3. And in Phase 6, apply corrective actions. Close the gap by implementing the recommended corrective actions in the security program or in the security controls. In most cases, simply listing the measurements collected does not adequately convey their meaning. In addition, you must make decisions about how to present correlated metrics. The CISO must also consider to whom the results of the performance measures program should be disseminated and how they should be delivered.